Hi, Golden Throwback here. Welcome to the first episode of our brand new series, Golden Throwback Recaps, where we relive the timeless classics of TV and film that defined our past. Today, we're diving into a classic episode from The Twilight Zone called The Old Man in the Cave. Spoilers ahead, so watch out, and let's get started.
In a nameless, desolate town left without working cars or electricity, a small group of ragged survivors gathers around crates of canned food, debating their next steps. Among them, one person asserts the cans are pre-bomb and safe to eat. Others, more cautious, urge patience until they can consult the enigmatic figure known only as the Old Man in the Cave. This mysterious benefactor has guided their survival through the 10 harrowing years since a catastrophic nuclear war. Their leader, Goldsmith, returns from the cave with a message from the Old Man. He relays that the food is contaminated and must not be consumed. The Old Man also warns of impending bad weather, which could spread radioactive fallout further. Despite the warnings, unease ripples through the group as desperation clashes with caution. The camera pans sharply, revealing Rod Serling standing in the ruined street. He delivers an ominous prologue. What you're looking at is a legacy that man left to himself. A decade previous, he pushed his buttons and a nightmarish moment later, woke up to find that he had set the clock back 1,000 years. His engines, his medicines, his science were buried in a mass tomb, covered over by the biggest gravedigger of them all, a bomb. And this is the Earth 10 years later, a fragment of what was once a whole, a remnant of what was once a race. The year is 1974, and this is the Twilight Zone. As the townspeople begin discarding the canned goods, a sudden commotion interrupts their grim task. A jeep rolls into town carrying 4 armed men led by the commanding Major French. French announces that the town is now under the control of a constabulary, a new force to restore order in the chaotic aftermath of the bombings. He demands cooperation from the townspeople and insists his authority is absolute. When Goldsmith raises objections, French responds with cold intimidation, threatening to hang him for insubordination. French justifies his actions, claiming only 500 people remain alive in the entire region, and that strict order is the only way to ensure humanity's survival. Spotting the crates of canned food, French inquires why the townspeople haven't eaten them. Upon hearing about the old man's warnings, French dismisses the figure as a foolish superstition akin to the desperate cults he's encountered in other small communities. French demands to know the truth about the old man. Pressed by French, Goldsmith explains only that the old man lives in a cave sealed by a metal door and communicates by leaving notes. Skeptical, French leads his men and the townspeople to the cave to investigate. When they arrive, the soldiers attempt to breach the metal door using a hand grenade, but the door remains unyielding. Frustrated, French warns the unseen figure inside the cave that this is only the beginning and vows to return. Back in town, French takes matters into his own hands, distributing the canned food to the starving townspeople. Goldsmith protests vehemently, warning the food could be poisoned by strontium-90, a radioactive isotope. French eats from a can himself, appearing unbothered, and mocks Goldsmith's fears. Goldsmith, however, persists, reminding everyone they don't know where the food came from or whether it was exposed to radiation. He grimly predicts that if the food is contaminated, they'll all be dead within 10 days. The sight of French eating with apparent ease, however, is too persuasive for the famished townspeople. Defying Goldsmith, they begin consuming the food. French's soldiers, meanwhile, break into a store marked "contaminated" and pass out bottles of liquor. Goldsmith's warnings go unheard as hunger and desperation overpower reason. By nightfall, the town descends into revelry. The townspeople and soldiers feast on the canned goods and drink the forbidden liquor. Goldsmith stands apart, refusing to partake. French taunts him for his abstinence, claiming he has brought happiness and relief to the people, while Goldsmith clings stubbornly to his fears. Goldsmith, however, remains resolute. He accuses French and his men of being not just intruders but murderers, pointing out the old man's repeated warnings about the food. French, angered by the accusation, turns the crowd against Goldsmith. Stirring their growing distrust, he accuses Goldsmith of fabricating the old man to control the town. The mob, emboldened by French's rhetoric, drags Goldsmith back to the cave, demanding he open the sealed door. Despite Goldsmith's attempts to reason with them, explaining that the old man's guidance has kept them alive through a decade of unimaginable hardship, the crowd's frenzy leaves him no choice. Reluctantly, he activates a hidden mechanism, revealing the old man's sanctuary. Inside the cave, the group finds not a man, but a large computer humming with activity. Its blinking lights and whirring processors are a stark contrast to the decaying world outside. The machine had been the source of the old man's messages, calculating and analyzing to help guide the town's survival. French, seizing the moment, declares the machine a tyrant. Rallying the townspeople, he demands its destruction, framing it as a symbol of their subjugation. The mob, consumed by hysteria, tears apart the computer, reducing it to rubble. Days later, the consequences of their actions become tragically clear. The town is silent, its streets littered with the lifeless bodies of the townspeople and French's men. The canned food and liquor had been poisoned, just as the old man had warned. Goldsmith, now the lone survivor, walks among the dead. His expression is a mix of sorrow and resignation as he reflects on humanity's failure. "When we talked about the ways that men could die," he says softly, "we forgot about the chief method of execution. We forgot faithlessness. Maybe you're not to blame, French. Maybe if it weren't you, it would have been someone else. Maybe this has to be the destiny of man. I wonder if that's true. I wonder. I guess I'll never know. I guess I'll never know." As Goldsmith wanders further into the wasteland, Rod Serling delivers the haunting closing narration. Mr. Goldsmith, survivor, an eyewitness to man's imperfection, an observer of the very human trait of greed, and a chronicler of the last chapter. The one reading, suicide. Not a prediction of what is to be, just a projection of what could be. This has been The Twilight Zone.
Now it's time to hear from you. What's your favorite Twilight Zone episode? Did you enjoy this recap of The Old Man in the Cave? Let us know in the comments. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell for more nostalgic journeys with Golden Throwback recaps.